I read Who is Bill Gates? By Patricia, I think. Okay, so the book was about a great inventor named Bill Gates, and he did a few inventions, and most of them were on computers. And most of his inventions led to future inventions that have changed the world today. Okay, so Bill Gates' family. He was born October 28th, 1985 in Seattle, Washington, and he is still alive. He is 60 years old right now. And Bill Gates' parents are William H. Gates and Mary Maxwell Gates. Bill has two sisters, Libby Gates, who was born in 1964. She is 9 years younger than Bill, and Christy Gates, who was born in 1957. She is 2 years older than Bill. Okay. So then, his life. Bill Gates was a very active child when he was young, and one thing he did a lot was sit on his rocking horse and rock a lot, and this led to his future when he did his business. He rocks a lot now in his chair, and he says that helps him think. Okay, and his parents were well educated. His dad was a lawyer, and his mother was a teacher. And Bill Gates always wanted to read. He was obsessed with reading. He felt that was like an activity and a fun game for him. And so at age 7, he read the whole encyclopedia. So it was like a lot of books. And then Bill, so obviously he was very smart. And Bill felt like, thinking of drawing with there. And then so he always looked for challenges, and he was left-handed, but whenever he was bored, he would take notes with his right hand, so that's a fun fact. And then, so when he was 11, he entered a contest in church, and it was this thing where it filled like 16 pages of a book. It was like this really, really long, he had to memorize this really long Bible passage, and whoever won got a free dinner with their family, and Bill ended up winning, and it was like super long. He didn't miss any word, like everyone else missed a few words. He was the only one that didn't miss anything. So yeah, so everyone was really surprised, and Bill said, I could do anything I said I to. And then, so winning meant a lot to Bill, and he did not like losing. And so, he was a good sport. Everyone always wanted him on his team because he was really good. And then, school in 6th grade, Bill lost interest in school. His parents saw that he was losing interest and decided to move him to a private school called Lakeside at the beginning of 7th grade. And so this ended up being a great change for Bill's life because it sent him in a new direction. Lakeside School was a school it was an all-boys school at that time, and it went 7 to 12. And Bill was great in math and science, but he hadn't found his interest yet. So one day in 1968, a teacher took Bill and some of his classmate friends to go and see the new computer they had in this room. And back then, there weren't any small computers that were like we have now. No laptops, no even desktops, none of that. So there were basically just huge computers that filled up this one big room, and that was called the mainframe computer. And that was super expensive, so they couldn't afford that. So instead, in the room, they had a teletype machine. And the teletype machine was sort of like this big computer thing that you would type a command. There was kind of like a phone on the side of it. You would type in a command. It would go to a mainframe computer in another building. That wasn't their school. They didn't own it. And it would send back a response. So Bill became very connected to this teletype. And so him and some of his friends would play with it, and they would just they would try to figure out how it worked. And So basically, the teachers were going to learn how they were going to they were trying to teach the boys how to do stuff, but ended up working the other way, and all the boys taught the teachers how to do the stuff because they were so like good at it. And then they made a club called the Whiz Kids, and they just played with the computer a lot. They were trying to make programs, and at one point, so Bill was only Bill was the youngest in that group, and so at one point they decided to kick him out. But really, none of the other boys in the group knew anything. So it was just Bill. So they ended up asking him back in. That's like how smart he was. And so at 13, Bill wrote his first program, and it was for tic-tac-toe. And so he got kicked out, asked him back. And then computer time wasn't free, obviously. And so the owners of the mainframe computer, the school had to pay $89 just to use the teletype a month, and then the kids had to additionally pay $8 per hour that they used the computer. And back then that was a lot. You could buy like 60 comic books with that kind of money, so that was a lot of money. So at the beginning, the Mothers Club paid for the computer fees, but after a while they ran out of money, so the kids had to start paying for their own fees. So Bill, in 8th grade, Bill's parents said they would no longer pay for the computer time. So Bill had to figure out a way to get his computer time because he really wanted it and he really had his mind set on this. So he got a job. He started working for a company that had just opened in Seattle. It was a computer corporation. They called it the CQ because that's 3 Computer Center Corporation. But not many people back then knew how any of the computers worked. But the boys worked on the computers for so long, had read so many manuals that they knew these computers super good. So the company ended up hiring some of the boys, and they came and helped. And what the company said, they said, okay, you can help, and you can come and work for us, and we'll let you do it for free, and we'll actually pay you to play on our computers and just check for any bugs. So all they had to do was just check for bugs and make sure the computers were working. And so it was basically like game time for them. And so, so they just worked on the computers, but they were only allowed to work on the computers when the staffs weren't using them. So that was like weekends, late nights, stuff like that. So so the company went out of business after a while, and at age 15, Bill went into business with the with another Lakeside programmer named Paul Allen, which is another really famous person that helped Bill a lot. And so they ended up writing this program for computers called the Traffic Data, and it measured the traffic around Seattle, kind of like on maps today, a long time ago. And so the boys each earned $20,000, which was that was like probably close to $1 million. Not that bad, like $500,000 probably. Yeah. And so during Bill's junior year, he got another job from Lakeside, and Lakeside at that time had become all like a girl and boy, but it was still private. And so the teachers had asked Bill and some of his friends to help make schedules for their classes so they would know where to go and that. So the boys got $5,000 worth of computer time, so they really weren't getting paid, they were just having computer time. But so Bill made the program run and stuff like that. And then in 1973, Bill graduated from Lakeside and went to Harvard University. So Bill's first year at Harvard, he was really busy and he had a lot of stuff to do at Harvard, so he kind of stopped a little on computers, but he still had his mind set on computers a lot. So when he was 19, which was the middle of his second year at Harvard, he read an article that Paul rushed to give him, and about the 1975 world's first microcomputer kit, which was basically like a tiny little computer that just had like a screen, sort of. So they were both really excited. it was called the Altair 8800. It was not really the smallest computer, but it was one of the cheapest. So only cost $400, which was a lot back then, but not as much as most of the other computers. So the Altair did not look like the computers today. It was small, like a microwave oven or microwave, just like that says. And then and the Altair actually didn't have any software, which meant that it couldn't do anything. So it was basically just this box that would sit on your table. So the boys decided that they can make the software or the programming for it. So they came up with the idea to create this new program for it. So they called, Paul called Bill called the company, and Ed picked up, and he said, and Bill was like, oh, we have this program ready for you. Would you like to see it? And Ed was like, oh yeah, we are really excited because we need a program because we don't know how to make it, and we'll pay you to do this. So when Bill hung up, and they were in New Mexico, and right now they're in Washington, and so and then Bill thought for a while. He was like, oh no, I told them I was done with the program. And really they hadn't even started. They didn't even have an Altair to work on, so they didn't know how they would get it to work. Because if you don't have the computer to work on it, basically like you're just making some random program and you're not even sure that it's going to work. So what they did, they did have the instructions for the Altairs, and so they read the instructions for a while, and they kind of scanned through the instructions. And so what they did, they got kind of this, they made a stimulator, which was kind of this chip sort of thing that you would put into a mainframe computer, and it would make it act like a mini computer. So they did that, so they basically tested their program on the mainframe computer, hoping it was going to work. And then when Paul decided that he would go, so he brought the program to Ed, and they weren't sure if it was really going to work, because they had never tried it on the Altair or anything. So Paul typed in 2 + 2, and the computer typed back 4. So it had worked, and that was the first language program for microcomputer. So Microsoft. After the boys got the deal, they came up with a name for their business, Microsoft. They named this because they were making software for microcomputers. And so, less than a year, they dropped the little dash thing and just made it Microsoft. So, Bill was the president of the business, and Paul was the vice president, because Bill liked to be more hands-on, and who's boss here. So, Paul took the full-time jobs at MIT, which was the company that made the Altairs, and worked as the software developer, so he basically just made it. And Bill stayed at Harvard, and even though, Bill stayed at Harvard, but still his mind was set on all this Microsoft computer, so he wasn't really full-time in school. So in 1975, Bill went to join Paul. They began a new project for Microsoft, and Bill's parents did not want him to drop out of school, so they made him return. So he came back, and he had to go back because his parents were forcing him to. But he really wanted to finish this project that they had started. So he knew that this was the time he had to act, because he knew that computers was majorly going to change the future in the world. So and during that time, chips had just been invented, and they could store a lot of information that you could put in your computer, and it would store information for you. Because back then, all you could do was type in a command, and it would type back to you. So, and he wanted to do more than just that. So he left Harvard again to go back to college. This time he wasn't planning on coming back. So Paul and Bill came up with a motto, or a slogan, a computer on every desk and in every home. And this was their goal, and they were going to make it happen. So other companies were starting to make microcomputers too. So Microsoft was really excited for this, because they knew that they knew how to make programs for microcomputers. So if they're like, oh, these people are going to make like basically the same thing, we can just keep